Hello, interwebs, and welcome to Close Up. I'm your co-host, Joe.
And I'm Ryan.
Today, we discuss a more serious and potentially controversial topic.
Ooh.
Why do we as artists even bother anymore? Featuring discussions around the erasure and censorship of art.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan and Joe here, and we just finished our podcast about some controversial stuff, and we bring up topics such as suicide and Black Lives Matter, mental health, all that jazz, especially me more on the mental health side.
Racial relations.
This is more so just a racial relation. This is more so just a trigger warning.
Yeah, transgender community, LGBTQ, sexuality.
Yeah. It's more so just a trigger warning, just to say that there will be some heavy topics thrown in here. I just want to be able to say that. Not saying we don't want you to watch this. We do want you to hear our opinions about how art, how mental health or how heavy topics are presented in art and film, and how we just want you to know that if you do need help, please contact someone, even if it's a parent, teacher, something like that. And we want to make sure that every listener has our best interest at heart, or we have your best interest at heart. So that's all we're going to say, and hope you enjoy the podcast.
We're going to skip past our medium shot and go right into our close-up. So just for a bit of context here.
Right into the action, baby.
Just for a bit of context here. With Warner Bros. Erasing entire film movies and shows for tax write-offs, and other companies editing old movies and shows to erase problematic elements or making them unavailable altogether, they're all setting dangerous precedents that make Ryan and I uneasy as contemporary filmmakers. Not just for the history of our medium, but for its future. If nothing from the past is sacred, then nothing from the present can be either. So how can we as artists give full effort to make art if there's always the active threat it'll later be mutilated or hidden away the moment it's uncool? So that's what we're into today.
Yeah, it's, what was it, $20 million in tax write-offs? Which if you're a big...
They canceled so much.
With a big Fortune 500 company or whatever it is, that's literally nothing to them, but they just wanted to write that off. And also, how dare they? During Brendan Fraser's comeback, you canceled Batgirl, where he's supposed to be Firefly, which is an underrated villain. He's goofy, but he's an underrated villain. And also, Batgirl is an underrated superhero. I love Batgirl. She's an underrated character.
Movie. They made the whole movie and then canceled it as a tax write-off.
And then I think Corridor Digital did a fake trailer for it, and then it got taken down by Warner Brothers or something. But now it's back up.
It's just... I understand...
How awesome is Oracle?
Really cool.
Oracle's a great character.
I think they like Oracle more than Batgirl. There's a lot of like bat people who are like on the streets. Oracle was unique in that family. Anyway, I just find it... I understand Warner Brothers went through a recent corporate merger. I believe it was with Discovery,
wasn't it? Yeah.
Universal Discovery, something like that.
One of them. Both of them. Who cares?
Discovery Universal, I think it. Anyway, but how bad were Warner Brothers' financial situation that they're cleaning house so much that they need? Maybe it's just the new management looking to really cut down on waste, or maybe the company was just doing very, very badly. But still, the fact that they're canceling so many works of art is concerning for artists everywhere. It's not just canceling works of art. I heard I don't remember what, this is off the top of my head, but I heard that they canceled a really popular animated show that had been going for a couple seasons, and it was one of the most popular adult animations out right now. And then they just canned it for a tax write-off, and now it's not available to watch anywhere. And
that's terrible.
Really pissed off people. A friend of mine told me about it the other day. I don't remember what the show was called. But that is the state of entertainment right now in many ways. And they're also taking shows off streaming services, which is also... That's disgusting to me, because the whole point of these streaming services like HBO Max is that it's got the entire Warner catalog on it, going back 100 years. It's got everything Warner Brothers. So if you can't find something they made on that streaming service, it effectively doesn't exist. Which, why would you do that? If people are willing to pay for it...
Yeah, I don't know.
If people are willing to pay for something, you think, oh, okay, I'll give them that thing. Like, why would you take anything off the streaming service that's supposed to have all your stuff? That's just... Like, that, they're intentionally trying to erase things. And maybe that's because, maybe they're problematic or whatever, or maybe it's for a tax write-off. The reason doesn't matter. The fact that they're erasing it at all is sketchy to me. And they have the rights. They can do what they want with it. But it doesn't make it any easier to stomach. Especially if you're a fan of the thing that they got rid of just unceremoniously.
No, not at all. And I had this problem with... kind of with Paramount for a little bit, but then I realized they just got rid of I was trying to watch The Godfather on streaming. It was on Netflix for the longest time. And I didn't realize it was owned. I don't know why I didn't realize this, but it was owned by Paramount, and they got rid of it in every other streaming service except Paramount Plus. And I think they did that because they have a limited series called The Offer about the making of The Godfather, which I heard is really good.
Oh, yes.
And that's completely different, where what HBO Max has done is they've just gotten rid of stuff. And you can't watch it at all.
Netflix has done a few as well. They've gotten rid of a few Netflix originals, which once again, they're Netflix originals. So if you got them off Netflix, you'll never be able to see them again.
Yeah. Or just go to an HMV and buy a DVD copy. Which, kids, if you don't know what a DVD copy is what we watched as children. You've watched it on a disc.
And they're superior to streaming, kids, because no one can take them away from you. As long as you got disc players and the disc works, nobody can just take it down.
Did you know that your PlayStation and your Xbox are actually DVD players? It's the same thing. God, we're going to get to that time where kids are going to be like, I didn't know this played movies. And I'm just going to kill myself because I'll feel like I'd be too old. Anyway. But yeah, I really hate... And it all comes down to... And the stuff that they're canceling aren't problematic. It's just it's literally a tax write-off. Because it's either quality control or they've put in millions and millions of dollars into this stuff that they feel it probably won't get enough. They won't get the money back in return. So they just say, we'll just get some money back in return for a tax write-off. Because they know the stuff that they've been pumping out has not been the best. In terms
HBO
of
Max
quantity.
Was pretty much the best, though. It had the best.
It was. I'm just talking about the new, like, in terms of
yeah.
DC stuff. In DC stuff, I mean. Because that's what most of the stuff that's been canceled. Because I think of the acquisition.
Yeah.
Where maybe, and I've heard rumors just from other podcasts and stuff that it wasn't HBO's doing or Warner Bros. Doing that they wanted to make this a tax write-off, but the only reason the deal went forward is because Discovery Plus, maybe some people at Discovery Plus said, we're not going to take these unless you cancel these, so it's a tax write-off because we don't want to pay an additional $20 million for something we didn't create.
Which again
is also just
business sense.
You have unlimited money.
Fine, you can do that. But no, I'm not super well versed on the legality of these things. But I was talking to Justin earlier about this actually, and he had an interesting idea about how to resolve situations like these. He says, okay, if you don't want it, put it in the public domain. That way you can still wash your hands of it, but the rest of us can still use it. Now, of course, they wouldn't put Batgirl
just give
in the public.
Up. Yeah.
They wouldn't put Batgirl in the public domain, but they, maybe release the footage. People could complete the movie on their own. There'd be fan edits. Just let people do what they want with it. Don't put it in a vault, never to be seen again, even though you filmed the entire movie. Give it back to the artist. Or if you don't want to do public domain, give it back to the artists. Let the director who did it finish the movie with a director's cut or something. You don't have to release it.
It's all...
They can put it on the internet. Just Like, why do
Yeah.
you have to put it in a vault, never to be seen again? I don't understand.
They don't make money.
Yeah.
Because it's all company led. The people, I like that's an obvious thing, but it's all business people led. It's not artists leading these companies. It's people who have billions and trillions of dollars. It's stock investors, and they don't understand or they don't care about the art just as long as it makes them money. And I can understand that from a business standpoint, because if they're investing in something, they want to have a return on it, and they want to have the best return possible. But also, the best return possible can also be the shittiest movie that I've ever seen in my life. And they really don't care about the art. They just want something that's simple, that they know that works. And if they feel that they don't want a certain film to come out because they know it's going to be taxing for them, because yes, they're better off than most people, but let's face it, 2020 was hard on everybody. This pandemic's been hard on everybody, and if they can save 20 mil from a tax write-off, then I understand that, but also it's just disappointing because there's just been not too much hype, but a lot of hype towards Batgirl, especially with Brandon Fraser and the character itself having its first cinematic debut. The costume looked great, the actor looked great in the role, and I'm really disappointed.
We're going to cover this question on different aspects of what we're going to be talking about tonight, but I'm going to ask you about the tax write-off specifically. Why do you, as an artist, still feel like working on things when there's a chance it could just be a tax write-off? Why do you want to act in things that might never get released? Tell me, as an actor, what is your incentive? Why do you still care to act if it'll never get released?
Well, I think it just comes down to one word, really. It's just passion. I have passion for this business. I have passion for this art. And no matter which role I'm doing, you can always find something likable or enjoyable to do it. Whether it's a serious thing, a serious scene, or a dramatic scene, comedy scene, a scene where you're literally a tree or a dog. There's always something fun to do in a film. And the vibes on set are always fun. I haven't been on a lot, sadly, but the ones I have been on, it's always been good vibes. People, and they're just working people. And it's not just you in front of a camera. There's the camera operator, there's the sound guy, there's the guy who's pulling focus, there's the makeup people, there's the lighting crew, the gaffers, there's the director, the producer, the person who's reading the script for you. And it's great to work with a team, and it's passionate, and you all try your best to do your own part into making a piece of art come to life through visual medium. And I think it's a beautiful thing.
I agree. I'm going to flip it just a little bit. There's one group of people you didn't mention, and if we're talking about Batgirl and action movies, I'm going to say, what about stunt performers?
Stunts?
Some of these,
yes, stunts, yes.
Let's say, well, Tom Cruise is the most prominent stunt person, so I'll say, okay, so Tom Cruise risks life and limb to do Mission Impossible movies, but what if what if they just said it's a tax write-off? He freaking risked his life for your entertainment, and then they just say, it's not worth showing people. How does that make you feel?
The good thing about the stunt program in America is that they get paid regardless. So that's
that's not the point. They're doing it to entertain people.
I know it's not the point, but just to kind of counteract your point there, where
you risked your life for a specific
reason. You can show up on set. Stunt people get paid up to show up on set, I believe, in America.
Yeah.
Where I think it is, or was in China for the longest time, when Jackie Chan was coming up, where if you didn't work that day, you didn't get paid. But there is a clause in a lot of stunt people's contracts in Hollywood where you just had to show up and you still get a day rate. But if you did a stunt, you did obviously get paid more. But I understand what you're saying. People do risk their lives for this job. There are a lot of, say something tragic happened on Batgirl, and because injuries happen a lot on film sets.
Yeah, somebody got injured, somebody
really injured,
died.
someone got killed, you know?
And then they just say, nah, this
Out of
movie's not worth
respect.
showing people.
Yeah, out of respect, I feel like you have to show it because
Yeah,
it's not worth it.
what did they die or get hurt for then?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is, well, these people are risking their lives too. So I'll say, okay, what about the military? You know, maybe it feels weird to compare military to entertainers, but military go to different countries and they fight tooth and nail for their lives, for certain ideals, for whatever their country sends them over for. And, you know, there's a lot of stories about this. Why do we go to these places and fight and die? Because you need a reason to go there. You need something to fight and die for. In stunt performers, it's like, okay, their reason to risk their life is for our entertainment. They're not doing it like soldiers do it for ideals or for patriotism or what have you, but stunt performers risk their lives for your entertainment. So if people aren't being entertained by you risking your life, well, then you're just risking your life. So what's the point in working? Well,
Right.
why am I going to risk my life and then no one will ever see this? So where's the incentive? There isn't really one, unless you just like risking your life for fun. But it's also, I mean, like you said, you got to have a passion for your craft, but I'd understand why people would just be turned off entirely. And it's not just stunt performers, of course, it's everybody. I mean, nobody wants their hard work thrown in the can. It doesn't matter, you got paid for it. Yeah. Film and art are not like other things where you just show up to your job, do your bit, collect your paycheck, and at the end of the day, pretty much everybody there wants to be there for a reason beyond money. And that reason is to entertain people for the love of their craft, to better themselves, to be in that set vibe, like you said. And if you don't get to show off your work...
It's all about the creative process. That's more fulfilling than any $1,000, $1 million paycheck that any actor or crew member will ever get.
I'd take $1 million paycheck, though.
I mean, I would take it, but I would appreciate
but
yeah. We could build a set.
Yeah. So, well, I guess we should probably come up with a reason people would want to. I have plenty of
want
reasons.
To cancel projects?
No, not cancel projects. Why would you want to work on a project that might be
controversial?
We're going to talk about like canceling in the, you know,
or later on. Okay.
In the societal sense. I mean, canceled is in tax write-offs, like what happened to Batgirl. It's just canned
right.
And never shown again. So, okay, we already came up with plenty of reasons why people who work on things would not want to work on projects because they might be canned. But if you would want to work on things, well, I guess like you were saying, it's just for the love of the craft.
It's just love, yeah.
Being on that set, doing your job, even if nobody sees it, would be gut-wrenching and extremely disappointing. But I guess you could say, like anything, your craft needs time to hone, and you still got practice at it. You're probably better at what you were doing after the experience than you were going in. So even though nobody got to see it, it was like, oh, great, I got paid to practice, which is cold comfort, but it's still okay, you're doing the thing. And I guess maybe you could say there's less pressure attached too. You can just, it maybe emboldens risk takers to say, oh, well, if nobody's ever going to see this, I'm just going to do what I want, whether it's make big acting choices or go crazy on the direction, play things less safe, because if it's just going to be a tax write-off and nobody will ever see it, I may as well do what I want, right? So maybe in a way that could embolden people.
Yeah, for sure. It's weird because it's such an early example of it, but I don't know what the real vibe would be on set if people knew that the thing that they were working on would either be a tax write-off or just know it won't get the proper views.
I'm not saying the scenario they know. I'm just saying
Okay.
you're working on set with that possibility always hovering over you.
I see.
Let's say you're working at Warner Brothers
Well,
and you're thinking, well, I don't know this movie's going to be a tax write-off, but look at what happened to Batgirl. Are we going to be the next Batgirl?
Yeah.
You don't know, but there's always that possibility.
My idea is you try to think of it as, in a sort of way, you try to think of it as, oh, I just hope this movie doesn't bomb. Yeah. Where you go into, you put your heart and soul, you're supposed to put your heart and soul into every movie you make, and know that you have hope that it does well enough so that it can help better out your career. And you just try to think of it as you try to think of it. So I've completely lost my train of thought. You try to make sure you don't have the mindset of that it's going to bomb, because if you think it's going to bomb, you're not going to try your hardest.
You got to go all in.
Scene. You have to go all in all the time, even if it's you eating. Like, you know this about me. I have a very picky palate. I'm a very picky eater. And if there's a food on the table I won't like during a scene, I'll still eat it. I'll still have to, because that's what the scene requires. And it's, it's developed over, thank God, it's developed better over a few years, but that's just a minute example.
Yeah.
Of what could happen. So
take a listen.
That's really at the end of the day why people are there. It's just to have fun. It's a fun job. It really is. Just to play dress up for a couple hours a day or a few months out of the year. And it's hard to explain, but when you're reading a script for a character that you were trying to create, and when you're able to embody that character, go through the motions, come up with his likes, his dislikes, what music he listens to, all the little things that matter or don't matter, and you're able to present that on screen or stage and be someone completely different to yourself, and have people watch that and believe that that is a character and not you. It's just the best feeling ever. In a way, it's tricking the audience and saying that's not Brad Pitt, that's a different character. And there's a strange beauty to it that I can't really describe. It's just when you're playing a different character. It's borderline bipolar, but you get paid for it, so it's fine.
You're in the mind of somebody else, but you're also still yourself. There's a couple layers. You're not just saying your lines, you're becoming another person for a couple hours.
Exactly.
It's, well, you talking about all this acting, well, that's all your perspective, and well, mine to an extent as well as an actor. But if we're talking about things not seeing the light of day, you just reminded me of a point here. From my end, I'm a writer primarily. You're an actor primarily. I'm a writer. I'm a pre-production guy. You're talking about the camaraderie on set and everything. What about guys like me who mostly focus on pre-production? I do all this work just for something that nobody's ever going to see. At least you guys on set got that camaraderie and got to act and, embody those characters and get makeup and wear cool costumes and maybe film explosions or stunts, or like you guys kind of get to have fun. I'm just locked away in a room with my computer, which to be clear to me is really fun because, writers have to be a certain breed to enjoy it. But
I mean, you could be one of those writers that forces themselves on sets. Could be one of those guys. Be like, no, that's not how I wrote it. You could be one of those guys if you wanted to.
I am that guy. That's why I do my own. Anyway, I just feel like it's a little harder for pre-production people to be like, I wrote this whole script. I spent so much time on it. And now, once again, like I said, you could always say, well, I got better at my craft. But also, I think that's harder because like you were saying with the criticism, people believe I embodied this character. Well, if the movie never gets made, you never get that criticism. I, as a writer, never get that criticism. It's hard to grow in your craft without people seeing the thing to tell you how you could have done it better. So that's also
It's so tricky. It's one of those things where, because I like to think of myself as a writer too, but I'm not. I just write ideas down and don't fully develop a script, but I love writing. And a good representation of you just got to push forward and keep trying, I think, is Jonathan Larson, who is a real life playwright who
made Rent.
That's one of the before. Oh my god,
that's what he's famous for. If you don't know,
biopic that I liked.
Tick Tick Boom.
Not really a biopic, but it's Tick Tick Boom.
Tick Tick Boom's a
but
weird one.
he wrote. I love Tick Tick Boom.
It's
because it's about the play that's about his life.
Yeah,
but it's not a biopic.
Yeah,
the off-Broadway play, starring Andrew Garfield, Vanessa Hudgens, all that.
That
jazz.
he wrote. That was loosely based on his life. It's a movie adaptation of a play he wrote about his life.
Off-Broadway
so it's
play.
It's kind of a third degree removed
which a lot
situation.
of famous theater people have done plays of after Jonathan Larson did of Tick Tick Boom, because it's a good off-Broadway stage musical.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Neil Patrick Harris has done it. Lin-Manuel Miranda's done it, I'm pretty sure.
Well, he directed Tick Tick Boom, so he's definitely a fan of it.
He loves Jonathan Larson's. And I only bring him up because in Tick Tick Boom, he has the workshop for his upcoming play they wants to do. That's not Rent, by the way. I believe it's Suburbia. Sorry?
I think it was Superbia.
Yes, Superbia. Right? That's what it was. Which there's a whole storm or team of people that want to see that musical brought to life, or just an album done of it, because the one song they do in it is actually pretty good. As a theater nerd myself. And he goes through the workshop. He goes through the writing blocks that he has. He needs to write this one song for this one character, and it's so tough, and he can't figure it out. And then at one night, it just hits him after, I need to get out of this apartment because I'm gonna lose it. He's swimming in the gym, and the song just comes to him. So he goes home, writes the song. It's a beautiful song. It's an uplifting moment in the film, and then calls his aide, does the workshop in front of all the producers. I don't know if Stephen Sondheim is actually in the movie, but his voice is in the movie.
I'm sorry we're about to spoil Tick Tick Boom for you.
You should see it anyway.
I'm sorry to kill your flow, but just gotta warn the people.
And it's a beautiful film. And so he calls his agent and asks, "Okay, so when do we start?" His agent's just like, "What? Just start with the next thing." And he's just, "No, but everyone loved it at the workshop. But when do we start?" And and it's a beautiful moment where you hear her sigh through the phone call. She just goes, "John, you just got to keep trying. You just got to move on, go to the next one." And at that moment, when you
got to have some context here. He'd been working on that musical for about, what was it, 15 years?
5 years or something. I think it was 5 years. It's 6 years it took him to write it.
Yeah, he worked on this thing for 6 years only to have his big moment and fail. So that's time he never got back.
So it's heartbreaking. And then he wrote Tick Tick Boom, and then he wrote Rent. But what's something so beautiful about that is it really sucks, but if you have the passion to just keep moving forward, if you're a writer, if you're an actor, I was going to say producer, but they don't have much passion. But if you're a director,
they got passion for money.
Passion for money. You just have to keep going, because you do have a voice. You do have this art form you want to produce, and you want people to hear it. And he was able to show that through his off-Broadway play Tick Tick Boom, and through Rent, which I have to bring up. He never even got to see live because he died the day before it was supposed to go live, which is so sad.
Yeah, it's tragic.
Oh. Tragic playwright.
All right, so do you want to pivot to the social side of canceling now? Not when a business does it, but when society does it.
Yeah, this is one I hate more.
Because at least business, at least with the tax write-off thing, I'm like, okay, your reason is to make money. It's black and white. This thing wasn't going to make money. You didn't think it was profitable. So you axe it. Okay. But society canceling you, well, that could be about literally anything. You just need to, like, everybody, every opinion that could ever exist has an opposite. So if you express any opinion artistically, you're going to piss somebody off. It's inevitable. Unless your work is toothless and has zero stances on anything. Actually, no, even people just existing is a stance. I'm trying to think of an example here. You walking around with that hat is going to piss off a lot of people. You're taking a stance. Yep. You're not saying anything,
from Toronto.
But you're still saying something just by existing with that hat. So it's like, what are you gonna get right? I think.
Cool about it.
So I have a little bit of a tangent I had in mind for this part. Now it starts off with what I love about Superman and what I think Frank Miller gets wrong about Superman is people know Superman stands for truth, justice, and the American way. Which, as a child, I used to consider truth, justice synonymous with law and order. And then, and then as I got older, I realized, I'm like, no, truth and justice. Truth is, what facts, what actually is happening. Justice is when wrongs are done and they're righted in fair and measured ways. Law and order is law and order is just whatever the powers that be at the time say are right, and then they enforce it.
Yep.
And that could be the people who make the laws, or it could be the people who make the social laws, like Twitter. I'm not saying I agree or disagree politically with whatever is popular to hate on right now. I don't like to pile on anything without knowing all the facts. But what I am saying is that what people hate right now hasn't always been hated, and it might not always be hated. Let's say, like, even an extreme example, Nazism was cool once. It's hated now. It's seeing a resurgence because there's a backlash to the backlash.
We're going there.
I don't support Nazism, but I'm also saying there's a flow to it. It was cool, and then it wasn't cool, and now it's kind of becoming cool again in a lot of circles. And then it'll probably be...
I don't know if cool's the word.
Yeah, you heard it here. Nazism is cool. That's the close-up.
That's our brand now.
Seal of approval. No, we do not condone Nazism or fascism of any kind. Any isms, in my opinion, are not good.
No isms.
To kind of paraphrase Ferris Bueller. But yeah, actually, no, that's just what isms are not good, mostly. But yeah, so that's the point. Whatever is people love or hate, things can change. So that to me is the difference between truth and justice versus law and order. And I think cancel culture is the law and order. It's not necessarily what's objectively...
It's slowly getting better.
Yeah. It's not necessarily what's objective right and wrong. It's just what's popular to think is right and wrong right now.
What do a certain group of people hate so much that they want to get rid of? And then it's canceled forever. Because someone
Halle
said
Bailey
something
is Little
10
Mermaid.
years ago.
Oh.
Who fucking cares? Honestly, whatever. Who cares? As long as she can sing. And I'm saying, this is not to get too political, but it's a mermaid.
We're here.
She's not trying to...
This is the top.
The character's not supposed to represent any certain culture. It's a mermaid. And I'm sorry to all the teenage girls out there that believe mermaids are real. They aren't. And some teenage boys. It's probably a thing. But it's just, who cares? And obviously, yeah, it's a diverse casting, but maybe, because we don't know, we're not in the room, maybe they casted her because she was actually fucking good.
Well, see, but
Because in the
the
trailer,
point.
she looked good.
We'll talk
She
about the Little
sounded
Mermaid. There's a lot of people who would say, okay, well, we have a lot of reasons for, not liking Halle Bailey. Like, this is an adaptation, and okay, this isn't how the character looked. And then the other side says, oh, well, you're objectively wrong because diversity is this is the thing we should be striving towards. So colorblind casting makes more sense in a diverse society. And they're like, well, no, you're not objectively right either, because, adaptation should have some consistency. Characters are how they are. So are you just like, there is a debate and both sides think the other is objectively wrong and that they're objectively right. But enough people are on both sides for even something stupid like a live action Little Mermaid adaptation, which I'm not going to see anyway. I'm just going to watch the original. I don't care about this. I don't like Disney at all. That's another close-up thing. But the point is, whatever people think is right and wrong can change with the times. So when works of art are made, they're unfortunately tied to the times. As much as you can try to make something timeless, whatever your stories are about are inevitably going to be what's in the world around you. Or something that was okay at the time that later isn't. And one example I'm going to give here is from Community, which is my favorite sitcom of all time. You cannot find Advanced Dungeons and Dragons anywhere. One of the best episodes in my favorite sitcom, which is taken down.
Yeah. I told you.
Yeah.
I told you this. I recently watched Community for the first time all the way through, and it was during the time where that episode got axed off. And I've been told by my cousins who really love the show, that
it's one
is
of the all-time best ones
episode of Community.
It is one of the best for sure.
Now, here's the thing. I wonder if they will post it on YouTube, because the Community YouTube official page has weekly posted a full episode each week. So I wonder if they'll actually do that. I doubt it. And I just heard news today that they have confirmed a film is being made.
Beauty.
6 seasons and a movie.
But my point is, at the time it was made, it was just a joke. Chang wore blackface he was playing a dark elf. and he
got called out for it too.
Yeah, and in the show, Shirley, who is a black character, looks to Chang all offended, and she says, "That's a hate crime." And he defends himself. He's like, "What? I'm playing a dark elf." Which, once again, if we're being, it's hard to see, like, the truth of the matter.
It's hard to be objective when you're...
Like, when we were talking about truth and justice versus law and order here, the truth is, dark elves have dark skin. He was doing a cosplay. Blackface is also a hate crime. I guess I'm not sure about the legality, honestly. Okay, so it is a hate crime, and Shirley acknowledges it, but that's also not Chang's intent. They have two different intentions here. Shirley can see a thing, and that's true. Chang can also see a thing, that's also true, and the fact that they disagree is comedy. But blackface being wrong is the idea that's taken over as objectively right. Therefore, that whole episode should be banned.
Yeah,
that's the thing. It's for a joke. They did the thing for a joke. Yeah.
We have to bring up context here on why it got canceled, because why it got taken down is because this was after the events of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement during June of 2020. So a lot of programs and a lot of actors and a lot of producers were speaking out on this, and whoever owned Community at this point said, we're just going to axe this because it doesn't show or represent what we feel of African Americans in the right way, which clearly they didn't watch the episode because they make a joke about how Chain is wrong.
And it had nothing to do with African Americans. He wasn't making
It was-
he wasn't
it was
wearing
just reactive.
blackface. Yeah, he wasn't wearing blackface to mock African Americans, which the point of this rant right now isn't to talk about what Community did right or wrong. The point is you can't access this episode anymore, even though it didn't really, like, because people say it's bad, but it really, like, the intent of it was not to be bad. It wasn't trying to be offensive. It wasn't making offensive commentary at all. But the fact that they say this one thing is wrong about it means one of the best 20-minute episodes of any comedy show I've ever seen is no longer available to watch. That is good art that's gone because people took the wrong idea from it. Clearly, I feel like most of the people who wanted to cancel that episode don't care about Community, never saw it.
Didn't watch Community, just saw it, yeah.
They don't know why it was. Yeah, they saw it. I
bet you any money they Googled blackface into 2000s and they saw that and they were like, we have to cancel it.
They see Ken Jeong in blackface and that's enough to cancel it. Context matters. Artistic reasoning and intent matters. But I also say that even if it was bad, I think it should be kept in because I am against erasure of any art. That was a time capsule for what was okay back then. Okay, so another example from another sitcom. I remember hearing that The Office had an episode where Dwight was in blackface, and they didn't have to get rid of that entire episode, but what they did was they edited out the scene where he wore blackface.
Yep.
Which, okay, that's a way around it. I'm glad you didn't have to scrap the whole episode. Now, I'm not here to argue these things are, once again, objectively right or wrong, even though, well, I think blackface is wrong, but it's not. The point is art should be preserved and not edited to suit our sensibilities. Because like I was saying, the law and order of the day says blackface is wrong, and that might change in another 100 years. Things might get really bad, who knows? And, blackface is just accepted as fine in that society. And then you're going to look back on all those old shows and you're like, oh, why did we mutilate those old shows, chop things out, erase them entirely? Like maybe societies of the future will find that entertaining, which once again, that's a future a lot of you, including me, would think of as a dark one, but also it's like, well, we're erasing things. This is a bad example because I'm trying to say you'd be entertained by the offensive stuff in the future. But my point is art is how it is. We shouldn't be changing it. I'm all for things that throw like trigger warnings up front.
Let me help you out here.
Yeah.
Art is subjective. It cannot be objective. So calling an episode of Community racist and promoting blackface is just wrong. You can tell because say if Community, just as an example, just say every piece of media that had blackface in it was meant to offend. Let's just say it was.
Yeah.
Then everything about it would probably be taken down, but it's not. It's used as a comedy purpose for Community. And the whole reason that got taken down, I bet there was no call for it. I bet it was just reactive from Hulu and Netflix because maybe a few voices popped it up on Twitter and they didn't want to get canceled.
Yeah.
The only thing that I'm surprised never got brought up or never got canceled was Tropic Thunder. And Robert Downey Jr. Basically changed complete skin tone in that. But the whole reason and I love Tropic Thunder. The whole reason for that quote-unquote controversy is because he is technically doing blackface. He's a method actor, and the whole joke of the show is, or the movie is, he's playing an Australian method actor who is so method, he has surgery to darken his skin to look like an African American. That is the whole joke.
And the African American in the movie is offended for the entire movie. They acknowledge it.
They acknowledge it multiple times. It's used for comedy purposes. And Joe Rogan brought up in one of his podcasts with Robert Downey Jr. And Robert Downey Jr. said 90% of my black friends thought, hey, that was great. And the other 10%, I understand why they're mad. But it all ends with intent. It all ends with intent. So with Tropic Thunder or Community, the intent was not to offend. The intent was to bring up these subjects, poke fun at them, realize that they are bad,
and move on.
Call out the character who is doing that. Because if we don't, if the characters in the world know it's bad, then we will know it's bad. But to completely annex or cut out a piece of media just because it shows a representation of that is just wrong.
Okay,
that really.
Well, you go, and then I'm gonna counter you.
No, you go. It's a different topic.
Yeah, you brought up an interesting point to me. There was about, you said intent's the only thing that matters, which I think back to film school, and I don't know if they still teach this, but what about films like Birth of a Nation? That entire film is blatant KKK propaganda. Yep. But it's also a landmark in cinema history for
it's being
the
fucking
way
taught in every piece of film class.
For the way it utilizes editing. And I'm pretty sure they're trying to, that's another one, another film they're trying to suppress. Mm-hmm. But it's also like, okay, so, we can all acknowledge KKK propaganda is bad. Nobody has to like the movie. But to not acknowledge what it did for film history just seems like you're trying to. It's like you're trying to teach history without showing important parts of history because you're trying to protect people from how history actually was, which is so dumb. It's like, oh, so this is history, but we're just gonna cut out all the parts that we think won't gel well with modern sensibilities. It's like, well, nobody's saying it's. Yeah.
When you erase history, you're just prone to having that history be repeated.
Exactly.
You're not saving anybody from it.
You can teach
saving anybody from it.
Yeah. You can teach people things were wrong, but also things deserve to stand as a relic of their time. Even, well, like Tropic Thunder or Community or Birth of a Nation, which, they all have completely different intents on how they handle it. But at the end of the day, they're all time capsules to this era. And if you edit them, it removes a historical component. It's like, well, this was acceptable at this time, and people can't see how far we've come if you don't see how, as a society, if you don't see how we were. If you try to erase how we were, how are we ever going to get better? But it's also... But the point of all this episode, which we got to double back to, is why do we as artists want to make anything when the order of the day can hate it the moment it comes out, and a lot of people will hate it no matter what? Like I said, even you just wearing that hat will make people hate you for and that's a very minor statement. So why do we as artists
minor hatred too? It's like people from Montreal be like, "Oh, come on, man. You haven't won since 67."
67, yeah.
Who cares?
So why do we as artists want to make something in a political climate that can change immediately?
Tell you exactly why.
I can make a film.
Exactly why.
Okay.
We don't give a fuck about politics. We don't give a fuck about your political views. We're here to tell the truth or spin something and make a piece of art. I'm sorry. There's one I want you to continue what you're about to say. But there's one cancellation about a show in recent times or a change of the scene that really pissed me off because they brought it out to light. You just go. You just go on what you're
No, you can finish. You finish. You're on a rant here.
Okay. Ugh, this pissed me off so much. So a little Netflix show came out. Around, 2018, 2017, called 13 Reasons Why. It dealt heavily on suicide, drug use, and sexual assault and rape. And the one scene that parents were losing their minds of was the main character, Hannah Baker, spoilers. It's not in the show anymore. It's not spoilers. Is her cutting her wrist very graphically. And it's an uncomfortable scene to watch. You know why it's uncomfortable? Because it's fucking real. It happens to kids everywhere.
I think we in 2022 are scared of reality.
Sorry, I'm not done.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm not done.
Sorry.
So this scene happens. People are all up in arms, and I love it when parents say this because they're such fucking idiots. They say, because you show the scene, now my kid had the idea to kill himself, and here's glorifying suicide, here's glorifying drug use. No, it's not. I have never watched a piece of media where I've seen someone kill themselves, where I've seen someone kill other people, or seen some violence and been like, I should try that. No. Do you know what the real problem is? It's not the glorifying of the violence, because there isn't anything glorifying. It's their fucking mental health of the person that's watching it. That is the number one problem in the world. It's mental health. And nobody wants to talk about it because nobody knows how to fix it. The first problem with the suicide rate, especially in teenagers, is not what they're watching or what they're consuming. It's their mental health. And the only reason parents don't know how to handle it is because they can't handle it themselves. And it's not their fault. I am not saying it is their fault, because mental illness is such a hard thing for people to wrap their minds around. And the whole reason why I'm so mad about this and the reaction to it is because the reaction was so strong, because it was a graphic scene, that around the third season, the creators of the show took that entire scene out. Fuck that. They produced something and they showed something that was real and showed the horror and the graphic nature of what suicide does to teenagers. And they just completely annexed it. So now kids in the future will just think it's literally just...
It's sanitized. They sanitized it.
It's sanitized it.
Yeah.
And it pisses me off. Because now we're just back to this, just walk it off, kid. Go take a walk outside, you'll be fine. And when it comes to mental health and suicide, the first step, I don't know how to solve it. I'm just a fucking kid who works like a food service industry and is a working actor. I'm not a doctor. I don't know how to solve it. But the first step into solving for suicide prevention is to actually address the problem. Is to actually talk about it instead of. And I understand if you had trauma watching this and if it was I understand if it hurts you. But good if it hurt you. Good if it's hard to talk about, because that's the truth. And we should talk about it and help kids today, especially during the digital age and social media, to just talk to each other. That's the first step, is just to talk to each other about our problems and what is wrong in the world and what's making us hurt. That's the first step, parents, is to actually, and kids, to your parents. Please talk to your parents at least. You don't have to go to a professional. Talk to your friends, your parents. Just try, if you need to seek help, just try. That's the first thing. And it pisses me off that the fucking cancel culture and the Twitter rage was so hard on for the show that they didn't cut out any of the other graphic stuff in the show, but they cut out that specific scene because it was such an outroar, and I'm so mad about it.
Now you bring up a great point about the sanitization of things, because I think it's art. Good art makes you feel, and sometimes we're supposed to feel uncomfortable. Sometimes things that shock and offend us are the point. And if you remove those things, art loses its teeth to affect us and affect change in us as people and as a society. And so I'm all for putting trigger warnings in front of things. I'm all for...
Oh, for sure. I never... Yeah.
Put trigger warnings in front of things. Warn people what they're about to get into, how people who might be triggered might be offended. Yeah. But don't sanitize what's actually in it. Let artists say what they want to say. If you feel like you can handle a piece of... Yeah, if you feel like you can't handle a piece of media, that's completely fine. I'm not saying that you have to watch this. We'll warn you.
I'm just saying the fact that they had...
Don't lessen the impact for people who chose to watch it.
Exactly. Fuck. It just shows that
it's there for a reason.
Did sanitize it have no fucking backbone. I was so proud of them of showing it because no one talked about it. Because no one talks about suicide prevention and realistically they don't talk about it. They have one assembly each year to talk about it, but they don't actually care because they don't know how to deal with it. And then they just got rid of it. And just shows you don't. It pisses me off because it's not coming from the network. It's coming from the fucking moms at Twitter who.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah, it's just so. But that's bringing it back to the main question here: is why do we as artists want to make things where in a culture like this we're going to they're going to force us to cut the teeth out of our stories, whether they just erase the story altogether because they think one thing is offensive. Oh, she cut her wrist, therefore we should cancel the whole thing, or just cut out that scene, rendering it a worse product. Why do we as artists want to operate in an environment like this? And it's very frustrating for me as a writer and storyteller. I mean, you as an actor, just, I'll get your perspective, but from where I can see, you as an actor, well, you kind of just get what's put in front of you. You work with things the best you can. But me as a storyteller and a writer, primarily, I'm the one making these stories. It all starts with the storyteller and the writer. And if I put in things into my story that I think need to be there, but people just want to cut it out or say, oh, that's offensive, but they just miss the point. And yeah, sure, maybe some things are offensive and just stupid and, shouldn't be in there. But sometimes people just react and they miss the point. That's usually what it is. And that as a creator kind of scares me away from mainstream work. It's one reason I don't really try to get mainstream jobs as a filmmaker at the moment.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, well, I'd rather just do my little indie stuff where I kind of get to do my own voice the way I want to present myself. And if people find it and like it, fantastic. I don't need a huge audience, but I don't really want to be censored to appeal en masse. It's stifling. It's exhausting to think about how everyone's going to react to me. Am I going to be canceled for something somebody misunderstood? It's ridiculous. And I shouldn't have to worry about it. But it's also
I think that's how you have to go. That's how you have to go through life right now. It's just you just can't worry about what other people think, because they always will just take something that you've said out of context and then twist the words. A perfect example is Dave Chappelle. How and the LGBTQ and the trans community attack him constantly because he brings up jokes about them and they think it's completely offensive, and they clearly don't listen to it. They clearly don't listen to what he's saying. I've watched Dave Chappelle's specials, and he brings up the part of he had a comedic friend who was transgender, who did comedy, and apparently she wasn't very good, or like that was one of the jokes. And he keeps talking about the story, and apparently this comedian posted something on Twitter, got attacked online, and she ended up killing herself, which is super sad. But guess what? The community took out of that entire story wasn't about, and his whole point was, I'm not attacking you, but you need to stop, because apparently the trans community wasn't part of the whole community, wasn't representing the whole community in a certain light, and some people in that community attacked her online. And his whole point in that was, I'm not attacking you, I just want you to hear what I have to say and really listen to what you did to my friend was not great. Like, she ended up dying because of it. But you know what they took from that is, oh, he said that the trans comedian wasn't funny and he's attacking trans people again. It's like, you're not listening to what he's saying. And I'm not talking about that community by itself, because everybody does this. Everybody's reactionary right now.
Why do we have to have communities as a whole? There's a lot of different people in the trans community. All have very different opinions. Why does it have to be one thing? Like us versus Dave Chappelle. A lot of them probably thought it was funny, too. It's just like, who are these people pretending they speak for their entire community? Like, those people piss me off. Like, no community unanimously agrees on anything.
It's really tough, and I know that's going to be a controversial topic, but they clearly just don't. There's people in that community. I don't want to summarize all of them, but there's people clearly in that community who don't fully listen to what Dave Chappelle says, and don't listen to the lesson he's trying to teach. They just take one thing out and completely twist his words. It's kind of like being in a relationship, if I'm being honest. If you're trying to, and you're in an argument, and then they take something out of context, you're like, that's what you took from that? It's not what I was saying.
Go back to Tick, Tick, Boom, the therapy song. My favorite one from that.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
It's a great.
Yeah. But yeah, we need to put a trigger warning at the beginning of this podcast. Anyway. But it's just, and it's swinging back more so now to, well, hold on. This is not, we need to stop being reactionary to this. Why does this person have to be this, representing this certain race, this certain gender? Why can't he just be a person with a simple opinion, or with a different opinion?
That's not how things are anymore.
I completely forget her name, but she talks, and I believe she is African American, but she has very conservative views, and she has very factual views, and she speaks. God, I need to look up who she is, but she's very well spoken.
Yeah,
and drives her point home, especially in people who are in her own community, where she talks about Lizzo a lot. Well, not a lot, but there's been a few where she's talked about Lizzo, and it's, wow, Lizzo, you're so oppressed with your $10,000 dresses selling millions of dollars each year. And I think it's because Lizzo won an Emmy, and she's talking about, when you vote for these awards, also vote for these laws that are oppressing us. And and I guess she was talking about how, Lizzo, you're not oppressed. You're literally one of the most successful people in the world right now.
Interesting.
Just all that stuff. I need to look up who she is because she deserves some traction. So,
well, while you're doing that, I'll just
talking.
Yeah, I'll just keep thinking about the central question here. Why do we as artists bother? Well, it goes back to, I guess, what you were saying earlier. Once again, it's you just gotta stop caring is the thing. We're artists because, well, I know things are very much, if it's not about my community or that community, or this attacks this community or that community, or I'm offended over this or that. That's basically all discourse on all sides for everybody now. I'm not singling anybody out. It's just everyone. Whatever group. If you are a part of a group, that group attacks other groups. And maybe it even attacks itself sometimes, or different fragments.
No one can find common cause anymore. It's either I have an opinion on something and you have to agree with my opinion, or you're just wrong, which is not the case.
Even groups are fractured amongst themselves. You can't.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, look at this is a bad example, but look at fucking back in 2020, the Black Lives Matter movement. There was one side of the group that was we need to show our message that we are just strong Black people, and then that our people are oppressing us. And there was a very small, minute group of it that were saying, let's fucking loot buildings. Let's hurt people because of this. And the other side, that other side of the community was like, oh, well, they're not a part of our movement. It's like, well, they're like,
but we are.
They have a more extreme viewpoint than it.
Yeah.
Than
they're like, but we are. And they're like, no, you're not.
And
they're
still,
like, yes, we are.
They're
like, no, you're not.
You're still in the community. There's just a different side of that community. And it's a bad side, but you don't want any bad side in your community.
There's too many moral grays.
There's no such thing as black and white anymore. I'm sorry. In life, I mean. There's no such thing as it. Everything is gray. Everything has a moral gray area. Everything does.
To me, that's why I gravitate. That transitions into what I was going to say. That's why I, as an artist, tend to gravitate towards the basics. I like as a writer, I like the fundamental stories about human nature, the things that speak to us all, that just the stories that are about human existence and struggles we all face as human beings living on the planet Earth, and not about my community or people versus your community or people, country, race, religion, age, gender, wherever you're coming from. I like the stories that speak to everybody. And yeah, there's specific situations. Characters will come from certain backgrounds. Like you're putting your focus in certain places, but the stories themselves have to be fundamental. And I think that's a lot of the problem with modern entertainment, is that stories are not really fundamental anymore. They're just telling specific narratives about whoever the story features, which makes it unrelatable to basically anybody who's not in the community that story is about. And that's just everything nowadays. And, I'm glad there's a lot of new, different kinds of stories being made, but also they're just, I don't know, there's just something about them that feels very insular and not very, big thinking. They're kind of shallow in a lot of ways because they don't relate to, once again, let's say in a more positive future. I've talked about futures where, Nazis are prevalent or blackface is seen as entertainment or whatever. But let's say a future where nobody gives a crap about the divisions that bind us today, that divide us today. And they look back on our modern entertainment and they're like, why were they so focused on their differences? It's so stupid. I don't like any of the entertainment.
There's a small push for it that I'm seeing, yeah.
People would be like, wow, entertainment from the 2020s is trash because it's it all focuses on groups that don't exist anymore. We're all just humankind. We don't care about that kind of division. So this is an interesting historical relic, but I can't relate to any of this. Whereas they'll look at something like one of my favorite shows of all time, Star Trek The Next Generation. It's all about just what we're like as human beings, just philosophy, our history, what makes humans humans. And those stories will always be relatable as long as humanity is recognizable. It's, those are the stories that'll last. Not something like, I shouldn't give any examples, it'll get too controversial. But
yeah. The podcast I was talking about was Amala Ekpunobi. I hope I'm saying her name right. And her podcast is Unapologetic.
Okay.
She has some shorts on YouTube that would be interesting for everybody to watch. But yeah.
All right.
It's just...
Yeah, so that's where I'm at as an artist. Tough. I do it because there is a future beyond this division where the fundamental stories that I have potential to write and to tell will last beyond whatever crap is happening now. Maybe some things will get mutilated. Maybe some things of mine will get cut or changed. But as long as I've got the artistic backbone to try to maintain it as much as possible, or people care enough about my work to try to maintain it as much as possible, then it'll exist for a future that can appreciate it. So I don't need to be respected in my time as an artist, as long as what I do impacts people the way I want, ultimately changes things for the better, I hope, even if it's not in my time. And I just think you need to try. Otherwise, there has to be a point to stories, even if people react to them and cancel them and try to bury them and get rid of them. Well, that's not a modern problem. Stories have always faced that, but we yell about it a lot more openly now because everyone can have an opinion.
Everyone has an opinion now,
which just makes it
Twitter exists.
Which just makes it more vocal. These have always been problems plaguing artists, and probably always will. But we got to try to affect. If my stories can impact the life of even one person in a positive way, then you know what? I've done my job as an entertainer. I've started the ball rolling, because then that person might use whatever I gave them to do good or impart it on other people or spread good around. I just need to impact one person. That's all I care about as an artist. And whatever society thinks of me, whatever. I'm just aiming for one life to improve. Thanks to...
Well said.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
You have any more to wrap up? I think I'm done.
I mean, at the end of the day, we're all just here to create something. And whether it be about controversial topics, whether it be about romantic films, whether it be about superheroes, whether it be about, whether it be about, even if it's a movie like Blonde, where it's almost 3 hours of just absolute trauma, or if it's a film about Emmett Till that's about to come up and his murder, and or if it's even if it's a film about, 4 guys in Vietnam who've never been in Vietnam because they're all movie stars. It's all pieces of art. And to get rid of these pieces of art is not solving any issue. It's actually ignoring the problem. You're ignoring the problem that is being presented. What you're basically saying is when you're canceling these projects and when you're getting rid of these projects, you're leaving no room for discussion. And that is the worst thing a human being can do, is not discuss something. Not have an open conversation about it. And just ignoring something has done nothing to help history. And that's basically it.
Yeah, when it comes to discussion, I'll just add there that things can be, once again, we're talking about objectivism. They can be objectively, I don't even know if there is really objectivism, but people can believe things are morally fantastic or morally repugnant, but we shouldn't try to erase any of it. We should just discuss it. If something's morally repugnant, we should say, not bury it in the ground, but say, okay, we as a society can discuss why we think it's bad. Not pretend it doesn't exist, or that the people who made it are evil for making it, because that may have not been their intention at all. Maybe their point was to start a discussion. But you're right. Discussion is the goal here.
We need to stop being so reactionary and actually look at the media or piece of art as a whole and really understand what is being presented instead of being reactionary.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I think that's all we got to say here. You want to wrap up?
Mm-hmm. Well, if you still want to listen to us after this, you can follow me at Ryan Walker Official on Instagram and on TikTok.
Well, we'll just erase this episode. It'll be.
Mm-hmm. We may or may not post this.
Episode 25. It'll be the lost episode of Close Up, the most ironic one. The lost episode.
We may wait to post this at like episode 50 or something.
The lost episode where we talked about erasure of media. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at ThoughtPlane Media and our Facebook page of the same name. Also, check out the Close Up with Ryan and Joe Facebook page for latest updates. If you listen to us in audio, check out our YouTube channel. And if you're on YouTube, find us anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. Find further film discussion and entertainment reviews on thoughtplane.ca/articles. And if you'd be so kind, you can support ThoughtPlane Media on Patreon, link below. Also, be sure to leave us comments and reviews, as that's a big help. There'll be a lot for this one. And how about clicking that like button if you enjoyed this? We hope to see you on the next Close Up with Ryan and Joe. Please come back. Till next time.
Take care.